Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at the Simply Trade Podcast. And as I said before, I'm reluctant to call it the Simply Trade Podcast for right now, only because this is more of a collaboration with NCBFAA as well as our podcast, mostly to do some outreach and kind of like just let the whole world know, the rest of the world, let's call it, because there's a big part of the world that knows about NCBFAA, but the rest of the world know about NCBFAA, and maybe, who knows, find out some benefits or something that might help you as an importer or an exporter, because they also deal with that, or a freight forwarder and logistics, all that kind of our world, let's call it, of trade. So we've been highlighting different committees within NCBFAA, kind of just talking to them about their year in 2025, what they might be seeing coming in 2026, and how things may be going with the industry. So we featured the Transportation Committee already. So this one, again, it may be a little slow, boring, just because this committee may not have had anything to do this year, just because there's really a status quo, which is the Customs Committee, which, of course, I'm just joking. Sorry, guys. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to kind of segue into that only because this is probably the busiest committee in NCBFAA right now, only because of everything that's going on with trade and in customs. And so I'm really happy to have and get these folks on the podcast here with us to just talk about all these things, just so that you know. We've had a few of these folks on our podcast several times in Lenny's case, but let me just go ahead and run it down for you. We have Sandy Coty, although when you see her on LinkedIn, it might say Sandra Coty, but it is Sandy Coty. That's how we all know her. She's the committee, the Customs Committee co-chair, along with Mr. Ralph de la Rosa. Again, he has also been on our podcast once or twice before. And then we have Mary Jo Muoio, who I've had the honor of interviewing her for a video promotion that they had at NCBFAA. Really nice lady and very well-known legend. She is a chair emeritus, if I'm getting that right. And then, of course, Lenny. I did talk about Lenny Feldman. He is counsel for the committee. Just trying to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but also helping them understand a lot of what's going on with customs and putting out notices and all that kind of stuff. So now that I've said that, I'm going to let you all talk. And thank you all for joining me. Sandy, is there anything that I might have missed?
No, you did great, Lalo. Thank you. I think I'll just start off just to give you a little bit of a perspective of what our committee tries to accomplish. Really, our goal is to provide clarity when possible to our members, especially with our partnership with Lenny, with the guidance from Mary Jo and Ralph and I, and the entire committee, providing webinars, right? Participating in conferences, all our Monday morning e-briefing updates. Of course, thanks to Chris from the NCBFAA, Chris Gillis. He just does a wonderful job making us look good, helping a lot of our members that email us directly into the committee with complex questions. So that is our goal as a committee. And Ralph, if you want to expand on that, or Lenny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to jump in. Really, this is the thing that I think we spent most of our time with is really trying to figure out, where we can provide value to our members, right? It's one of the things that we enjoy. I think I've been very fortunate to work with this group who have taught me a lot, and it's one of the things that I think that I try to bring into this from a perspective of what knowledge do our members need. And we're very fortunate to have folks like Sandy, Lenny, Mary Jo to guide our entire membership as we're trying to navigate all of these waters that we're currently needing to navigate.
Perfect. Mary Jo, anything you might want to add? I mean, especially you've been around in previous, let's call it I don't want to call it an administration, but, previous leadership roles there at NCBFAA. So anything else you might want to add just to kick this off?
Sure. I was just saying this to somebody the other day. I don't think I get through a week of my business career without leaning into NCBFA's Customs Committee, directly or indirectly. This is a resource that is absolutely invaluable to successful customs brokerage. Whether you're learning something to help you run your own business, or if it's information you need to ingest and turn to your customers. And I really, really mean that. I think to myself, one of the things that we have that is so incredibly valuable for us and for our membership of NCBFAA, two things. We have a really talented ensemble cast. Sandy, Lenny, Ralph knows things I barely understand, let alone really know. I might have some experience that they may not have or can lean into. So this ensemble cast is incredibly important. And then you pull in all those other people who serve on the Customs Committee and serve on working groups and other kind of aligned committees. There is somebody that knows everything you need to know, or you can always find somebody that knows what you need to know, I'll say it that way, across the leadership and then the staffing, if you will, of the volunteer environment in the NCBFA Customs Committee. So that bandwidth and that diversity, along with the institutional knowledge, Lalo, I like being a legend. I'm going to try and have my husband pick up that thought process tonight. He'll say in my own mind maybe, but that's it. But really the institutional knowledge and that diversity of experience and kind of practical knowledge, unmatched anywhere else, hands down.
Great. Thank you, Mary Jo. And another legend, if not now, but in the making for sure, is Mr. Lenny Feldman. Anything you might want to add before we start in our conversation?
I appreciate that, Lalo. No, I will say unequivocally, this really has been the highlight of my career to serve as counsel to NCBFA, not only because the customs brokerage community, these people who and friends who are running the Customs Committee are just so dear to me and just outstanding people to work with, but what they do for our country to support the government and its initiatives, regardless of who's in charge, regardless of the administration, is so indispensable. It's so vital. It's such an honor and privilege to be in this role. I look at the Customs Committee as a well-tuned orchestra. You're going to have your tuba player, you're going to have your trumpet player, you're going to have your harp player, with Sandy, Ralph, and Mary Jo as the maestros who are making sure that all the music is flowing. Everyone's going to have their skill set, but everyone is going to have to be in tune. And you know what? If we're not in tune, Customs and the other government agencies are going to say, the music you're playing just doesn't sound right. And we have to make sure we are in sync. It is that technical, and you need all those parts to function in that way so that we are able to ensure that we are on the right path. We are facilitating what needs to appropriately come into the United States. The broker also has the dual role of keeping their eyes and ears open as to what maybe should not be entering into the United States. And don't forget, collecting the revenue. We have seen the proliferation of tariffs of revenue. The government likes to say, well, CBP, Treasury, we're the revenue collectors. No. The revenue collectors, if you will, are the customs brokers. So if an administration like this one says, this is about new revenue schemes that are going to happen like that, snap of the fingers, if the brokerage community isn't ready for that, the revenue is not being collected, which, as we know, is a cornerstone of this administration's economic policy. So, Lalo, it's really fascinating. And it's just an incredible group that I hold in such high regard to work with.
Yeah, and I what you're saying resonates really well with me, only because I'm not a broker. I'm like this. It sounds funny, but a fanboy. I'm this guy that follows around NCBFAA. Been around for the group for a while, and it's been really great that they've had us in partnership with different things like this, like the podcast. And I hear you. I mean, you talk to them. Here's the thing. Also, I think it was Amy Magnus that said this once, and she said, I'm sitting right next to my competitor, like literally my competitor in meetings, yet we're the best friends that you can ever be. You know, it's because the community just helps each other very well, very nicely. Maybe a lot of brokers who have been thinking about becoming members are like, no, why am I going to be a member if, John Smith down the street, who's my competitor, is also a member. It's not going to be, anyway. But to me, it's not that way. It's actually a really nice community that I've learned to really embrace. But enough of that. I mean, I really think maybe everybody that's listening to this should already know that. And if you don't, join. But anyway, so let's go with, I guess, let's just try to tackle a few things that you all may have been working on here in 2025. And jokingly enough, I said that it's been a boring year, which obviously it hasn't. As of the date of this recording, today is November 7. Just so you all know, it's been a couple of days since the hearing with the Supreme Court. So things may change completely again here by the time this recording airs and or shortly after that. Something's going to happen. Whatever it is that is going to happen, like Lenny said, we're not here to criticize the administration. For or against, we're here to deal with trade. And that's what I appreciate also about the association, is that that's what you all do. You take what is out there, you help brokers in your committee anyway, decimate that and figure out, okay, so what is it that we need to do? I can imagine when a tweet goes out or a social post goes out, I can imagine you all like just scrambling and trying to figure it out. And I know that because we get those notifications, those briefings that go out, and they used to only be on Mondays. Now they are like almost every day. So anyway, like Sandy, maybe we could start with you. Like any highlights of the year that you feel that you can summarize as best as you can that came out of anything that the committee might have worked on this year?
Well, I tend to be the in the weeds girl, so I'm just gonna hit the weedy part, right? We did have a lot of wish lists that finally came to fruition. I think we tend to call it first downs, right? We probably didn't get the touchdown, but we're heading in the right direction. The modernized revenue process with the government has been really important to our community. And, I guess thanks to the executive order on modernizing payments to and from the government, we're finally going to see some traction. But leading up to that, we were able to allow payments of duties at any ports for certain scenarios, which was a huge win for us. Extending to 10 days when entries were getting rejected for trade remedy issues. With all this change, we really needed additional time. That was a win. And we've had some, wins with ACE reports, trying to get more functional reports for our members. The inbound report, anti-dumping, countervailing certification, low-hanging fruit for a lot, but really helpful to our community. And we keep working on that. So those are just some of the small wins. Ralph, I think you can add some more to this.
Well, I think the other thing is just general awareness that NCBFAA is at the forefront of all of these customs issues, right? And we've had recognition on various fronts. And Sandy is too modest to bring this up herself, but Sandy, which is our Customs Committee chair, was actually named to COAC this year, and that's a very important organization, or committee, if you will. And we had another Customs Committee member, Robert Morris, was also named to COAC this year. And we also have some other very important people who are right on this call that are past COAC members, right? So it's a recognition that Customs really wants to listen to what we have to say. That they understand that we have the pulse of the importing community, and regardless of what administration it is, we share the same mission as Customs. Is when there is a policy that has to be implemented, we want to work with Customs to figure out the best and also the clearest way to get those policies established. Our personal preferences or opinions aside, right? That doesn't matter. The matter is this is what has to happen, and we want to work with Customs to make sure that it happens in an orderly process and to accomplish what it is that they're trying to set out to do.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's very hard. You're not getting anywhere if you're complaining, because you still need to deal with the matters at hand. So, Mary Jo, I had this question. I did talk about how you've been in leadership roles in the past and what you're doing here at NCBFAA. How do you feel like this current year being a little more active, let's call it, in trade? because of the policies of the administration. How do you see what you all are doing right now as a benefit or a plus? And I like to call it a competitive advantage. Let's call it for the members versus like maybe in every other year. I'm thinking in the past, maybe folks just took it for granted and and didn't really weigh as much as what you are doing as now. I mean, although I'm sure I'm wrong, but I'm thinking it's more active this year, or correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. You tell me.
Thanks, Lalo. I'll pick up on Sandy made a reference to football, and this is something I've been thinking and I've been saying to some of my own colleagues, and I channel Vince Lombardi that when somebody on some football game did a dance at the end zone after they made a touchdown, I guess his admonition to the team was act like you've been here before. And you know what? We've been here before. As NCBFAA leadership, as practicing brokers, practicing attorneys, we've been here before. We have seen government shutdowns. We have seen trade remedy tariffs. We have seen Supreme Court challenges. We have seen enforcement. So we have seen this. So I think part of our job is to say, this too shall pass. We've got this. We understand that it's very dynamic. It's very complex. It's very stressful. But you know what? We've got this. We can help everybody through this process. So first off, I think that our role kind of as counselors, lowercase c, Lenny, but counselors to our members, just a place for them to come and vent and know, hey, I'm not the only one that's losing my mind right now. I'm not the only one that understands what tariff stacking is all about. So that's, I think, a very important thing that we brought to our membership. And then some very practical things. And Sandy and Ralph both touched on these in the sense of we're very successful in getting CBP to answer some of our questions and publish FAQs. So our members don't have to learn 10,000 people don't have to learn something. We've learned it and we disseminate that information. And when I mean I mean these guys much more. We've provided tools, toolkits, webinars, things of this nature. So the real benefit we have given our members is trying to be the eye of the storm. We see what's going around. We pull it in. We understand it. We ask questions and get answers where we need to. We communicate the information. And I have to tell you, there is a lot I have not had to learn firsthand myself because my colleagues in the NCBFA have learned it. And that has been invaluable, Lalo.
Interesting. Yeah. So you said quite a few things here that made me think of moving on to Lenny that might, or how the committee might be helping the membership in the sense that, so let's just take Lenny, this scenario, and I don't know if the committee pretty much deals with it. I'm going to say yes, because you said, Lenny, that brokers are the ones that are responsible for collecting the revenue, not CBP. So let's take that, what you said, and talk about what if, or what happens if the Supreme Court, and again, whether that happened already or not from the day that this is airing, comes back and says, there's so many scenarios out there, and we're not going to get into those right now, but let's talk about the big one in that, let's say they were not valid or legal, and let's say that they will offer refunds for all importers. So
Sure.
Is that something that you as legal counsel and as a committee are going to have to dig in a lot deeper to figure out, like, how is that even going to get done?
Yeah. So no, I think there's a lot there. Well, first, just to clarify, it's the brokers in conjunction with customs
Right.
who are the revenue collectors, right? They both play a complementary role in doing that. I wouldn't want any of our viewers to think it's the brokers to the
No,
exclusion of customs or vice versa. That's me doing my counsel thing there. Sorry, Lalo. But,
No, of course.
we all do it together. And let's go back a step. When these executive orders and proclamations came out, you see executive orders, by the way, on the reciprocal tariffs, and you see proclamations on the Section 2, generally speaking. This was all new to us. We thought, those of us on the call, I dare say 30, 40 years in the business, we know how to classify value. We know free trade agreements. Wow, we haven't seen this type of language before. And you know what? There's not a regulation that's being set forward at this point, and there's not a Federal Register process for notice and comment to discuss it. So we, in no short order, had to understand how to interpret that and how to make sure that we were, as brokers, as a brokerage community, collecting all the revenue. And that's been a piece that I've been very proud of this committee, that I feel that whenever there's an opportunity to enter the door that's a chance for you to communicate with the government. An open door, no matter how you achieve it, is a good door. And we've been speaking very productively this whole year with the leadership all the way to the top at Customs. We have in the past spoken to leadership at Treasury and Homeland Security. That those people changed. We went in because when they asked Mr. Feldman, why do you want to meet with us? I represent the people collecting the revenue. Okay, we'll find time for you to have an appointment with us. That sounds interesting. We'd like to meet these people. Here we're doing. We went into USTR, the United States Trade Representative, for the first time in years, Department of Commerce, to understand how are you coming up with these inclusion tariffs, these 700 plus subheadings now that are covered. So we've had those ongoing discussions. As far as the court case goes, I think it comes down to three things. It comes down actually to donuts, duties, and delegation. And if you were following the language in the oral arguments, there was a lot of discussion about donut holes. And that got my attention because I don't know about you, but whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or I go to Tim Hortons, where I recently was speaking with the Canadian brokers, I love my donuts, but I even have more of the thing for donut holes. So I was so excited to hear this. And it was Justice Kavanaugh saying, looking at this statute, at this IEPA statute, and it's the International Emergency Powers Act, okay? How are we to interpret that statute, the IEPA, and say, well, it covers quotas, it covers embargoes, but it doesn't cover tariffs, even a 1 or 2% tariff? Is that a donut hole in there? To which, by the way, there were 12 states represented as part of this case. The Oregon solicitor, Attorney Gutman, said it's not a donut hole, it's a different kind of pastry. And everyone was just laughing because his point was there's a statute for embargoes and licenses and sanctions. There are other statutes for tariffs. It's going to come down to whether it's a donut hole or whether it's a different kind of pastry. And that's what the duties are going to be about. Of course, we know what the D is. And the delegation. Has this authority been delegated to issue these types of tariffs, enact these tariffs to the executive branch, whereas throughout history, this IEPA has not been used to do this. And moreover, there are other statutes through Congress that mention how to collect tariffs. Is this delegation proper? This could go either way, Lalo. So if in fact the court says, okay, the tariffs are unlawful, what type of relief will there be? Will it be retroactive? Will it be prospective? We don't know. And if it's prospective, there's probably going to be other lawsuits as to why it's not retroactive. If they say that the tariffs are to remain, there will be other lawsuits as to how it's been interpreted or misinterpreted on all of these very tricky provisions anyway. So we're going to see that. So throughout the year, not only something that we're all very proud of, we've been providing flowcharts for our broker members so they could, at their desk, understand the schematic and visually see how to apply all these different rules and, more importantly, how they all interface. So not only are we providing those tools, we're going to continue to do that once we hear from the court December and January. Okay, here's now the process to get the tariffs back. Or when your clients ask you, how am I going to mount my next challenge because I feel I should get tariffs back, but I don't have the vehicle to do it yet, we're going to be there for that as well. So the whole process has been really fascinating. And what's cool about it is, as I had said a few months back, it's not just the legislative branch. It's not just the executive branch. I said, I think the judicial branch is going to be the one to have the final say on this. And we started to see that in real time this Thursday.
Yeah, I see that too. And again, all these some takeaways from what you just said. One of the things that I'm getting from this and that I like that is emphasized. Obviously, I'm already aware of it being around the NCBFAA these last few years. Is that resources? So you're talking about how you will provide information, how to deal with it, tip sheets or flowcharts, and just earlier Sandy and Ralph mentioned webinars and education. So these resources. The way I see this, and I've said this before in other episodes, is that, and I'll continue to say it only because I feel that that's a very strong thing, is that it's almost level setting things off for the broker. The small broker is now as informed as a big broker. They're not going to need to have an Amy Magnus, for example, at their firm that knows and will gather all that for you. If I'm like, a small broker with a small staff, I mean, I wear many hats, it's only so much that I can get. But now I'm getting the information as good as the big brokers, because I'm in the association. So having said that, and really this question is just up in the air for anybody, what do you all feel has been some of those things that this year, at least, that the committee has put out that has given that information that normally a smaller broker, let's call it, would probably not have access to? No, that doesn't have the resources. By resources, maybe people, by resources, maybe money, or both. That has truly helped, let's call it, let's just move forward, instead of having to have clients saying, hey, well, how come you didn't tell me about this? I'm hoping I'm making sense here.
You are, and I'd love to jump into that because I am a small broker, right? I think I'm exactly the type of person that you're talking about. And the ability to participate in NCBFAA, and there's so many working groups that our customs committee have, and we tackle individual, sometimes it's concern, sometimes it's outreach, it's we have some things that are rather complicated, right? Anti-dumping countervailing duties have always been something that's been, almost a mystery, especially when you're a small broker and you don't maybe have a client base that's you're that exposed, but you undoubtedly end up having to deal with anti-dumping countervailing. We've had a great working group, and we actually came out with combination with Sandra Travis and through the work of William, that's the chair of this working group, a certification, an anti-dumping countervailing certification toolkit that have been very, very useful. We've also had it's also the ability to participate in meetings and in calls with the leadership of not only what Lenny mentioned. It's great to also meet with the top leadership, but we have a working group or a subcommittee that makes individual calls with all of the different centers. And, we've had, our committee members, Michelle and Merritt, that have been doing that. And the ability to speak to all of these different centers of excellence, and, not only understanding what specific issues there are within those centers, but also being that, we're talking about national permits, that there's continuity and there's consistency in the way policies are being implemented is definitely something that a small broker benefits from. I mentioned before having a voice. We have our penalties or liquidated damages working group that then Dan Myler heads up, and we're able to send examples to customs where maybe a liquidated damage or a penalty was that there could have been a different way to handle, or sometimes that are just erroneously issued, and a small broker is able to do this. And I can we can go on and on and on regarding all of the different tools. I think another one that I think is worth mentioning, if I'm just mentioning a few, is the harmonized tariff schedule sequencing group that came up with a toolkit, and Myra Reynolds did that for us. So one of the important things I'm telling you is I'm talking about all of these different toolkits, but I'm purposely naming all of the folks that assisted with that, because it truly takes a village. And what Mary Jo said before is true. I may know a lot about my little corner of the world, and that's great for me, but I know who to call that knows a heck of a lot more than I do regarding a number of topics. And a small broker does not get that opportunity without being involved in an organization like NCBFAA.
Right. Yeah, and totally understand that. That's a great point, Ralph. And It just, like you said, it's like you have that, like in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I think that's a show that you have that lifeline, call a friend, so you have that available now, and something that you would not have otherwise. And I've also emphasized this before, where you have, let's say, just that, not anxiety, but that you just feel like, I don't want to be part of that group because, you might be a little shy, or you might be like not reluctant to like network with folks. I don't know, for whatever reason, and like maybe they know too much, they know more than I do. I whatever the reason, I've always heard and seen with NCBFA that folks are like, as soon as they come in, and it's like you're one big family, you all know each other really well and everything. You end up, Ralph, you've told me before, you never knew that you were going to be, like in this case, in your case, a co-chair. You've reached that level. I think you emphasized that in one of our previous conversations. But I always find it how even the small brokers, and you're a very good example, Ralph, can grow within this organization that's a national organization, which is really neat. I guess in the interest of time, I don't know where else what else we can talk about 2025 unless you all have something. So I don't know if moving forward with 2026, what would be, or what is it? And again, you all can interject and stop me here if there is anything else you might want to talk about 2025. But what excites any of you about 2026? What opportunities, or what do you see in coming that will make I don't know, that gets you excited about 2026 coming forward? Within the industry.
I'll start real quick. I think just touching on last year, I think where, Lenny and Ralph and I get all the questions that come in through our membership, right? And then we can be that force multiplier to get the answer out. Elevating to customs what we know is really a problem, right? We have these 5 really top issues, and Lenny's just brilliant at being able to formulate the good questions and getting answers. That is invaluable, right? Because then you don't have everyone asking the same question, and we know how to funnel what we know is really pertinent up the chain to try and get as much clarity as we can. That's just what we need to be able to move forward to next year, right? Can we get even more clarity? There's still a lot of things that we don't have good answers on, right? Lenny and Mary Jo and Ralph. So, for me, it's just keep pushing to get as much clarity so we can understand the game, so we can follow the rules.
Sandy, I'll jump in and say one of the things that excites me, Lalo, the most about 26 is it's pretty certain what we're doing in 25, we won't be doing the same way in 26. And this is an industry that is incredibly dynamic and constantly reinvents ourselves on behalf of our businesses and our clients. We were originally referred to as customs house brokers. And brokers and house are not really truly reflective of what it is we've been doing for quite some time now. We were brokers because we used to go to the terminals or the ports in colonial America, and we would take ownership and broker the sale of the cargo. We do a lot of things today, mostly glad that we don't do that for the large part. And we would do that physically at the customs house. So we have been reinventing ourselves, since the second act of Congress. And I really think it's really exciting. What are we going to look like in 2026 and beyond? How's technology going to influence what we're doing? What are our customer needs going to be tomorrow that are different than what we are today? And the NCBFAA has been really, really good at sometimes pulling our customers, our membership, sometimes pushing our membership to continue to evolve as our customers need us to. And sometimes we're doing things before the customer even realizes that that's something that we should be doing for them or that they need. So I'm excited by the fact that, and I say this to everybody, this is the furthest thing from a dull industry and career that you'll ever have, right? Because every morning at 5 a.m., you can read the Federal Register notice and it's downhill from there. But really, it changes all the time. I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I think next year is there going to be some similarities, but a lot of things are going to be different. I don't think the way that the government is going to be collecting tariffs, the authorities they're going to use, number one, are going to be the same. It's unclear as to whether it's going to be IEPA. It might be, one of these other programs. So I think we'll have to adjust to that. So that's going to be exciting. I think we're going to have a few more new deals. I don't really call these trade agreements that we have with Japan and the EU and the UK, 10, 15%, 10% respectively. These are deals that are happening before our very eyes. I had the honor of serving as a NAFTA negotiator when I worked at Customs. It took us 4 or 5 years to negotiate that. These are taking 4 or 5 weeks at the most. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where those go, what the tariff schedule, what duty collection is going to look like, where this association is going to be ready for it. And because of that, the trade community, and as Mary Jo likes to say, that furniture company or that toy company that these people on the call turn into importers are going to be able to do that. They're able to transform into importers under these deals because of the customs brokers. We're seeing this as well. We didn't really talk too much about the transition away from de minimis this year that we saw. That was one of the top 3 or 4 headlines. And now all of that is going into what I call the main line. It's going into the 01s formal and the 11s informal. In comes the customs broker indisputably. So the broker is playing a role there. I'm getting still lots of calls and conversations about how do I manage that? How do I manage all these small shipments now that are coming through the mainline channel? Am I doing it right? Do I have the right expertise? Am I exercising responsible supervision and control? And all of this, I think, is coming under the concept, as we were alluding to, what tools are we going to use? When is it proper to use AI and machine-based learning? Customs is doing it. They're using it for forced labor. There was just an announcement of a very big partnership for transshipment. What's transshipment going to look like in 2026, which isn't really transshipment. It's kind of a regional value content scope type role that's being played with, and we're seeing in some of these new deals. And what role is the broker going to play to facilitate the importers who are bringing merchandise in that might have manufacturing, might have inputs from multiple countries such as China? How are we going to leverage AI in a positive way, in a productive way to do that? So I agree. I kind of laugh when I hear customs house broker. It's like a customs concierge now. You have to be ready to handle each and everything that comes out under the sun and walk your clients through that so that they're exercising reasonable care and the broker continues to exercise responsible supervision and control. And our friends at Customs are happy with everybody.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I've always felt that, and several people in history have always said that you learn from your challenges or mistakes and not from your wins. So you wanna make sure that, I think one of the ones that I liked the most was, I think Henry Ford might have been the one that said that if like the only mistake, and of course I might be botching this, the only mistake that you can take from a mistake is not learning from it, and I'm not saying that what we're doing this year are mistakes. Please do not take it that way. What I'm saying is all these challenges that we're doing are going to help us get through 2026 a lot better. In fact, probably 2026 we're going to be sitting there and thinking, that was a no-brainer compared to now, right? And so technology is helping a lot these days as well. And so that's going to be, in my opinion, a very big player next year in 2026. But that's another conversation. And then, so any closing words? I mean, thank you all for sure, for being here. I really appreciate it. I always feel like we were like almost 40 minutes into this, and I always feel like it's only been 5-10 minutes. But any closing words or anything? Any like events coming up, aside from the annual event coming in April next year in San Antonio, anything that might be more specific to your committee or anything really that you want to close with?
I'll start real quick, get involved, right? Get involved locally. You will make a difference. And I always say you get so much more out of it than you put in. So that's my 2 cents.
I would just add that the event, it is something we see all the time. It's like drinking water out of a fire hose. That all the speed of change that comes at us is very quick. So many times the events pop up just as quick to deal with questions, concerns that our membership have. So I'm sure there will be many events outside of the published ones. It's almost hard to predict because it's hard to predict what we're going to be asked to face next. Right. Whatever it comes, we as an organization and as a committee we'll face it together, and that's part of the fun.
I would just also say that our membership should familiarize themselves with the structure of the NCBFAA Customs Committee and recognize that they have a local representative that they should lean into. And then that kind of bubbles up, if you will, right? So you've got a lot of resources, a lot of friends. I had a colleague attend a conference. She was a newbie just this week. She sat down next to somebody. They were a leader in NCBFAA. They're now her best friend, right? So it's a wonderful, wonderful community. Learn how to use it and then learn how to contribute.
I would say that in large part, I sincerely owe my success and effectiveness as a practitioner to the customs brokerage community and having the opportunities to work with them, not only when I started in Florida, but especially now with the national customs brokers and forwarders. The knowledge, the exchange that you get from this brokerage community, what they're willing to share with you, and the questions they raise to get you thinking is just unparalleled. So as a service provider, I'm going to encourage anyone who's listening, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a carrier, whether you're a surety, a bond agent, whether you're involved with AI, really look at the NCBFA and how you can play a role to support this association, because this is definitely the place where there's going to be that two-way street, that you're going to have a lot to offer that this association is going to appreciate, and we're really going to have a lot to offer you as a service provider to encourage you and to augment your suite of services and your effectiveness in that role.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for your input. And for everyone else that's tuning in that is not part of NCBFA, you want to get involved, just check our show notes. There's contact information there. Like everybody has said here and in other episodes, everybody's just open to helping out. So just reach out to me. I know all these folks and I know the rest of them, and I'll be more than glad to connect any one of you. But thank you all for tuning in and in this series, and we hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.